welcome to the Fintech Surge podcast, creating wealth of opportunity through fintech innovation from the Middle East for the Middle East. My name's Steven, and I'm excited to be joined by Alexandra, our co-host for this episode.
Thank you, Steven. It's a pleasure to be co-hosting this podcast with you. Powered by the Fintech Surge, the region's leading fintech festival, hosted by the Dubai World Trade Center, alongside GITEX Global.
I'm here with Khalil Alamir, the CEO and founder of Telr Payment Solutions. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
For those of you who are not familiar with Telr, it's actually an award-winning UAE-based, founded and homegrown payment solutions provider, allowing e-commerce companies to scale their business internationally and accept payments from their customers in a seamless and secure way.
Fantastic.
So that'll do okay?
That's perfect.
Perfect. So Khalil, we always start off these podcasts with just a quick, simple question is, what does fintech mean to you?
Great. Well, that's a great question because, a lot of people are hearing fintech as a buzzword the last couple of years, and a lot of people don't know what it is. It's actually just, in my opinion, it's a change or the growth of financial services into our modern world. As you know, technology basically took over the world in all aspects, whether it was social commerce, social media, any aspect, insurance, healthcare, whatever it is, technology took over the world basically. And technology is so important that in the financial services area, with the growing consumer needs and the changing consumer needs, there's a lot more technology needed in order to morph that customer experience. Mm-hmm. And that's where technology met financial services and became fintech. Yep. And creating an ever-evolving, better user experience in financial services.
Great. And that's something that we always try to talk about a lot on this podcast is that fintech really does reach everybody. It's not just a buzzword for a certain industry, but it really does target the consumers. And the best technology is the one that makes consumers' lives better, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we're in a consumer society, or the world has become, all about consumerism, mm-hmm. right? And the heart of that is money.
Yeah.
In order for you to get a service or a product, you need to pay for it. And the heart of that, component is the actual payment. And that's where fintech came in to sort out that problem and enhance the experience, because money is very emotional to people.
Of course.
And they need to feel secure in order to use their, process their payments and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned technology a lot in your definition of fintech. So for you, is fintech more of a technology play, or is it a finance play that incorporates technology?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Technology is quite important into the financial services. At the same time, we need not forget that there's actually a service behind that first, mm-hmm. that you want to provide. So I think to answer your question maybe differently is technology will enable the reach of that finance product to the consumer in a more efficient and more let's say user-friendly way. So and to put more perspective to that, if you think about the millennials, for example, an ever-growing group of people that have a very short attention span.
Right.
And as we go along in time, the next generation after that, they're going to have less attention span.
Right.
Today, the attention span is compared to a 10-second scroll on TikTok, mm-hmm. or a 90-second video.
Right.
So imagine if you want to, provide a service, they can only spare that 90 seconds. So the user experience is quite important, and that's where technology comes in to enable that.
Exactly. And so we're really experiencing a whole generation that has never experienced life before technology. Life
Absolutely.
Before this, fintech solutions where a click of your phone, a tap of your card,
sure,
and your payment goes through.
And not only that, I mean, think about when is the last time maybe a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old went into a bank and opened a bank account,
right.
to start with, physically. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Or swipe the card that does not have an EMV chip.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of tap.
A PIN number or
A
something
PIN
like
number.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And so I mean, I guess this kind of brings back to, to how Telr was founded. So if you could just kind of walk through us your journey of, being in the UAE and saying, I think we need a solution for this.
Sure. I mean, we back in 2014, which is quite some time ago, e-commerce was just evolving. People started to look at setting up their online stores. And what we found is that, just to give you some perspective, I've been in payments for over 22 years now. So at that time and point, in 2014, people were going to, either cash on delivery and, they have about 40-50% return issues, products not being delivered, refunds and what have you, or payment not collected. So they wanted to incorporate online payments. And the only solution that they had was to look outside into Europe and the US, into the likes of PayPal and getting those PayPal accounts. That was very costly, and it had a lot of operational and technical challenges.
Sure.
So we saw a need that there should be a regional online payment gateway that is born out of the UAE, and that's where Telr was founded. And we started developing that state-of-the-art payment gateway that is fully secure. And from there, we launched our services in 2014 for the local and regional players in order to have somebody that they can talk to, somebody they can support, that they can support them in order to accept payments online.
That's amazing. And I think that one of the things that I'd like to point is that most people listening to this podcast have probably actually used Telr at some point without realizing
I hope
it,
so.
right? They might not be your customers, they're not the merchants, they don't
Yeah.
necessarily have an e-commerce website of their
Sure.
own. But chances are, if they've paid with an e-commerce website in UAE or in Saudi, they've probably somehow worked with Telr at some point.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not a business to the consumer, so we're a business to the merchant or business to business. So with that in mind, absolutely, we don't show ourselves to the consumer in most cases. So you might have used our services without knowing, and that's the power of technology. Is we want to create a seamless payment experience. You don't care who it is,
Exactly.
as long as it's service oriented, secure, swift, and fast.
And that's what we were talking about, this new generation, the millennials, Generation Z, they don't really care, how it happens. They just know that this is the standard that they're used to when it comes to technology. And if you're going to survive in business, especially online, you need to have this already sorted out.
Yeah, and not only do they not care, but they also want it to happen right now and immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, in this region, there was, even when I first came here, cash on delivery was a very big component of shopping online.
Sure.
Was that because the technology wasn't here, or was it a cultural thing that they just didn't trust putting their credit card details into a computer? Or, how do you feel that?
I think it's a mix of things. So one, it was the infancy of regional payment gateways. The costs of over 10% at the time using somebody from outside was, astronomical. Sure. And this is one. The other thing is what we call the card base. So the number of cards actually split out and spread out throughout, the economy and the people was still growing. Not everybody had a debit card. Not everybody had a credit card, unlike these times. At the same time, the behavior, whether it was trust issues or whether it was know-how, age. Of course. Age was a big factor. But what really helped was the pandemic, when everybody was forced to go online and shop their groceries online, their pharmacy and everything like that. That forced them to learn, and that took us over a very big curve in order to create that know-how and create more users that trust into the system and want to use the system.
Sort of like a forced adoption
Absolutely.
of technology.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It was a captive market, right?
Yeah, of course. And so I know that you've brought payment solutions to the UAE, as homegrown in the UAE. What separates Telr from other payment solution providers?
Well, yeah, actually, that's a great question because what separates us is we have the technology that we've built in-house. It's fully proprietary. We own the IP. It's state of the art. It's certified on the highest level of securities with PCI DSS, which is Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. It's the highest level of security you can have in the payments industry. And with that, what that does, that gives us the power of customization, personalization, and localization to our merchants. So today, if a merchant has a unique way of actually accepting payments, or he has a unique customer journey, we can customize to each and every merchant to that. So that's something that is different, gives us an edge over everybody else. The other thing is our one-stop mindset. So we saw a need that when a business wants to go from offline to online, they don't just need the payment, but they actually need a lot of things. And we differentiate ourselves with providing all of these products and services that they need in order to have one relationship with one company and one integration with one company, so you don't have to repeat yourself. So we provide them from the actual e-commerce platform, the website, the inventory system, the search engine optimization, the payment gateway, obviously, and all that integration with the last mile delivery and all the reports and everything like that. So that's really the power that we have.
That's amazing. I mean, we think of payment solutions provider means I put my payment in, you make sure the merchant gets the payment, and that's the end of the story, right? But obviously, there's a lot of components to what you do. There's to make things seamless is not a seamless job, right?
Yeah, and that's our tech team, the developers that we have, work around the clock in order to ensure that we're always on top of the technology. Things are flowing naturally for the merchants. They're and they have the leading. Always the leading and top of technology at that time.
That's amazing. And I think that's one of the things that we had touched on a little bit earlier is, why did it take so long for payment gateways and online payments to become that popular in the UAE? And whether it was cultural, whether it was a trust of technology, and COVID has kind of forced people to adopt to that and say, well, I don't really have a choice now. I have to trust these solutions. So how can we, trust technology and to make sure that even when it's a quick tap of your phone, this is going to be a very safe, secure transaction?
See, that's very good because today any online store has from whether it was any behavior that they have, or shape or color scheme or products or whatever they're selling, at the end, that journey ends with people adding products into their cart and clicking that checkout button. And that's really where it's the most important to have that comfort. So for a merchant, they really have to look for a good, stable payment gateway that is PCI certified for security and gives them comfort that the technology that they're using is all compliant. And that's what we provide, that compliance piece. So whatever API, whatever integration you have with us, you already inherit that PCI DSS compliance. And that gives you that important aspect of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one thing I'm noticing in this conversation is that there's really no room for error on your part. It has to be seamless and it has to be basically perfect, because the online shopper journey now is they might have 5 different tabs open up, comparing prices and comparing specs, comparing shipping, all the different aspects of online shopping, and adding to the cart, coming back to the cart. I believe that abandoned carts are like 80%. And you don't see that in the grocery store where people put things in their basket and then just decide not to check out. But sometimes, especially when it's a more higher priced object, it takes some time for them to get to the point where they say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put in my details and go ahead and check out. When that happens, there can be no error. There can be no room for, well, that didn't work out, because they would just lose that business. There's too many options out there.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to think about it from multiple aspects. First of all, money is emotional to people. So there cannot be any margin of error.
Sure.
This is one. Two, if we think about it from our perspective, serving merchants, the merchant is online, and that's where he does all of his revenue and his sales, right? So we have to be available. So availability is quite important because we cannot say that, oh, at 2 a.m. tonight, the payment's not going to work.
Right.
So because you never know where his customer is logging in from, what time zone, or even if he's in the same country, he wants to shop at 2 a.m. So availability is quite important. Uptime is quite important. And security is quite important. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. And it's emotional, and people get upset when things don't work out with their money, right?
Merchants and consumers, right?
Both.
I mean, they spend the money on the marketing, they spend the money on the products, they spend the money on making sure they have a beautiful website that does everything it's supposed to do and leads people to a checkout, and then, it fell short there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's quite important. And that's why we also not only provide that checkout experience, we provide a bunch of different things, and all the other products and features that we provide come built in and with seamless integrations into the payment to make sure that continues to grow. And that takes me to another point where about differentiation. With a one-stop mindset, we provide more products and features to the merchant, one, to their customer, as for example, buy now, pay later, where the customer of the merchant can actually pay in installments.
Sure.
This is one. And two, we also provide financing through Telr Finance to the merchant themselves to be able to take financing for working capital, for expansions and growing their business. Inventory and what have you. So we're kind of not only sitting in the middle of the technology, but we're also pushing the customer to buy more, at the same time financing the merchant in order to expand that inventory and their working capital.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if the merchants are your customers, then their customers are your customers. And
absolutely.
The most important thing is somebody actually going through, having a great experience online and purchasing something.
Absolutely.
If your customers are not getting customers, then you don't have a customer.
Absolutely. That's what drives traffic.
It sounds like you have a lot of, all the box checked, right? There's a lot of components of payment solutions that I don't think many of us realize go into a payment solutions provider. So what comes next? Is it more solutions? Is it just more region?
Well, like you said, I mean, it sounds like we have all the boxes checked, but it's not. It doesn't stop there. It's not like we checked all the boxes and we stop, because we have to remember technology is ever changing, ever growing, and it keeps on moving. And with that, we have to keep on moving with it. We have to keep adapting. We have to keep upgrading, updating, and innovating. And with innovation comes more features, more products, and what have you. At the same time, the customer demands and the business needs, both of them, are also ever evolving. So with that in mind, we have to keep on catering securely products and features that go hand in hand with the customer behavior and with the merchant needs.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going with that.
And how do you guarantee that you stay on top of the trends?
Well, we're connected with the merchants. We hear from them. We carry ourselves as a boutique payment gateway, and with that comes boutique customer service. And with our boutique customer service, they're constantly in contact with the merchants, and our support team is constantly in contact with the merchants. And whatever trends or feedback that we get from those merchants about their customers, might complain about certain things or might need certain new features, we hear those in and we put them in the pipeline, and our tech team, because we're fully proprietary, roll them out in a matter of days or weeks and what have you. And we continually innovate along with looking at the market, studying the market, different trends, where things are going, and adapting to that.
Yeah, great. And so do you see any trends that are coming up right now that you're going to start working towards, or any regions that you think demand your services?
So it really depends on the market that we're working in. So right now we're in, obviously like we said, we started in the UAE, and then about 4 years ago we expanded into Saudi Arabia, and these are the two main markets that we serve. Not only that, but we do have merchants that we serve in a variety of countries all over the region. But these are the two main markets that we focus on. So with that in mind, we are looking into expanding into other countries in the region, as well as we just closed a funding round with one of the top 3 payment gateways in India called Cashfree.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And that funding is targeted towards fueling that expansion and towards building a unified tunnel, let's call it, between Indian merchants and the Indian community in the UAE, and creating that, a bridge of a unified payment solution. So that's another thing that we're looking at as well.
Great. And, obviously we always have to get our plug in for the Fintech Surge, and, we appreciate that you guys are going to be sponsors at the event. Tell us more about, what are you excited about for Fintech Surge?
Listen, Fintech Surge is an important event, in my opinion. It's where a lot of the fintech players are going to be there. A lot of people that are interested in fintech, that want to learn more about what is being served in the region or in the market, are going to be there. So it's a good chance for us to be showing all of the capabilities and the services. Like you mentioned, you hear about a payment gateway and all you think about is payment, but you don't know all about all the other stuff that goes around with it. So that's a good opportunity for us to actually show that. The other thing, at the same time, we're excited to connect with potential new customers, existing customers, hear face to face from them as opposed to a different variety of channels, and just show off what the UAE has to offer for the region.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, obviously, Fintech Surge is alongside GITEX. We expect over 100,000 technology buyers, investors, VCs, government officials, associations, all attending this giant event, looking for the best of the best, what's new, what's out there. For all these visitors, what can they expect whenever they come by the Telr booth at Fintech Surge?
So what they can expect is they can expect a showcase of our capabilities and features and services and products. But what's more important is that they can expect to connect with our experts that are going to be in our booth, and they can answer all the questions. They can connect with them directly. They can see firsthand demos. They can, and just get service the way they want to be and learn more about the features and the products that we offer. That's
amazing. And you had mentioned, so Telr is 8 years old now, started in 2014. And, obviously we've seen technology transform tremendously. And I'm sure that Telr itself and its products and its services, from the products that you had in 2014 to now, I'm sure looks way different.
Absolutely.
How do you see, within the next, let's say, 10 years, technology transforming at the rate that it's going?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a lot different. I think in 10 years is a long time to predict because technology is super fast and changing. But we've seen, moves in different markets where some markets are moving towards wallets. So the wallet business is big. Some markets moved quite aggressively towards buy now, pay later, and just different various services. So alternative payment methods is something that we're looking at. Crypto payments is something that is being talked about and evaluated within Telr, and with the new regulations that just came out from the Central Bank of UAE and other central banks in the region. That's supporting the direction of the market and the new trend. So that's really what we're looking at right now, and trying to make sure that we always have all the payment methods available, whether they were traditional or alternative, and they're there.
Yeah, sure. And are your merchants telling you that customers are demanding more and more crypto, or has that not quite reached that level yet?
It's not reached that point, but we've received inquiries about crypto payments and what have you, but I don't think we're there yet. I think it's going to need a little bit more time. And just another thing to circle back on that question as well is, with the metaverse talk all around the world, we're looking at how do payments fit in the metaverse, and how can we actually cater to that and make sure that this is this the future, and how we are aligned with that in order to provide the right services.
That's great. So I guess I asked, are there any regions that you're targeting next? And it actually might be a whole nother universe that you're targeting next, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. And with obviously with growth of technology, with the pace of technology, with the quick adaptation of technology, we see a lot more entrepreneurialism, right? We see a lot more startups coming up. We see a lot more young people trying to find a gap in the market, even if it's a very niche gap. They say this is a gap that I can fulfill, and we've seen a lot of that with this buy now pay later is becoming very big, and now even banks and Apple are starting to adapt to that. We're seeing more of these salary advanced sort of technologies where you basically can receive your salary as you earn your salary and not waiting till the end of the month. So these are great simple solutions, but obviously I think fintech, especially when you're dealing with financial institutions, it can be a little bit daunting. So what is your advice for an up-and-coming fintech entrepreneur that has a great idea and says, I'm ready to go? How do they get started, and what sort of advice would you have for them to?
So what I would say is that, fintech is a very broad industry. If I want to narrow it down to digital payments, for example, out of fintech, it's also, while it's zeroed in, but at the same time, there's so much to do within that small part of it. And it's ever evolving. Speed is quite important. Make sure that you have a working proof of concept. Make sure that you can, even if the need is there now and you build it for that need, make sure that when that need changes, you can actually grow and scale and adapt along with it. So that's simple advice that I would give.
Great.
Yeah.
So I imagine that a lot of them are going to be coming up to you at the Fintech Surge, asking for your advice, especially, it's a huge inspiration that you are actually started in the UAE. And we see a lot of these, big companies like Amazon coming in, buying out Souk. We see, Uber coming in, buying out Kareem. And, so it's always great to see, this was started in the UAE, for the UAE. It fits the needs of the UAE and the customers of the UAE. And it's something that we're very excited to have you at Fintech Surge.
Thank you.
October 10th through October 13th, part of GITEX at Dubai World Trade Center.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Great. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.